Well, the Treatment Action Campaign and Corruption Watch will be marching to the Gauteng Provincial Legislature today, calling for the sacking of ANC MPL's former Health MEC, Qedani Mahlangu and Brian Hlongwa. Now, for more on this, we are joined in studio live from Braamfontein by Head of Stakeholders and Campaigns at Corruption Watch, Kavisha Pillay. Kavisha, thank you for joining us. First and foremost, do you think your action will result in a positive response from government?
Well, Corruption Watch and the Treatment Action Campaign, the march today is to highlight that what's going on in the Gauteng Health Department is completely unacceptable. And we've been engaging with various officials in the Gauteng Health Department, as well as the Premier. We've written to him about the issues of Brian Hlongwa. Our partner, Section 27, has been engaging him around what's been going on with regards to life esetimeni. And what we want to see today is that we want some form of resolution and commitment from the leadership in Gauteng that they will take our message seriously and that they will address the serious collapse that has happened in the Gauteng Health Department. So this is part of many actions and mobilizations that we've planned. We've written to various officials in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature around what has transpired after the release of the Special Investigations Unit report that exposed Brian Hlongwa and the mass-scale corruption. And this is, again, as I said, it's just one of many mobilizations that we've planned to hold these officials accountable for their actions.
All right. Well, Kavisha, my initial question was, do you think the Gauteng government will heed to your calls? What's your opinion on that?
Well, we can hope, and if they don't, we'll just continue the pressure. So, as I said, we've written various times to certain officials, and we haven't received a response. And the reason why we're marching today is to demand some form of response. And we've made it clear that if we don't get, or if there's no accountability, we will continue with public pressure and any other form of pressure, which includes various, legal pressure and so on.
So, what other measures do you think the public or the government can employ to get the health system right back on track?
Well, firstly, and we have to hold the officials that have been responsible for the collapse of it accountable. And when we do that, we can understand exactly what has transpired and to what extent. So, for example, this issue of Brian Hlongwa dates as far back to 2007. So it's over 10 years, but we can see how that has had a ripple effect and how that has contributed to what's going on at the moment. Our partners at the Treatment Action Campaign have told us about, there's no medication in hospital, patients are sleeping on floors, there's no the ambulance services are quite scarce. So we know that the problem is quite dire. What the public can do, and especially toward in cases of corruption, is that they can report these incidences to Corruption Watch. When we understand what is happening in these various hospitals and clinics around the province, we will be able to mobilize with our partners and create some form of public pressure. What government needs to do is government again needs to start putting measures of accountability in place. They need to start putting measures of transparency in place. I mean, the health system itself is very prone to corruption. It's very vulnerable because you procure almost everything. So from cotton buds to major machinery, there's a lot of procurement that happens in the system. And that in itself is quite susceptible to corruption. So to ensure that there's adequate policies in terms of the supply chain management policies, that those are all in place, and then also transparency, to allow for public scrutiny and so on. So those are various things that can happen, but again, the problem itself is quite dire. So it's going to take a lot of public pressure, it's going to take a lot of goodwill from the side of the government to ensure that the Gauteng Health Department gets fixed.
Now, your organization, tell us more about your organization. Does your organization have the ability to perhaps bring up criminal charges or bring some of these individuals to the court?
So Corruption Watch is a non-governmental organization. We were launched in 2012, so this is our 6th year of operation. We are an MPO, so we don't have sanctioning powers, but what we do is through the reports that we receive, we are allowed to put pressure and on various officials and hold them accountable. We are looking into taking these cases further in terms of the law, and we have been engaging with various institutions such as the National Prosecuting Authority, the Asset Forfeiture Unit, and the Hawks, just trying to ascertain as to whether or not they're going to proceed with criminal action against Brian Hlongwa and other implicated officials that emerged in the Special Investigation Unit report. But these are just some of the tactics that we can employ, but again, it would result on whether or not the NPA is going to take this matter further.
All right, well, thank you for your insight and analysis. Hope to speak to you again soon on this subject. Thank you. That was Kavisha Pillay, head of stakeholders and campaign at Corruption Watch.